Welcome back to Bible Shorts, episode 130, the book of Genesis, in the beginning. Yes, we're going to start studying the book of Genesis, the first book in both the Jewish scriptures and the Old Testament in our Bibles. It can be hard to understand parts of Genesis. We miss certain things because we don't see what was obvious to the original authors and readers, and we miss what they would automatically understand because we live in a different culture and a different time. So let's begin with Genesis chapter 1. When God began to create the heavens and the earth was complete chaos, and darkness covered the face of the deep, while a wind from God, sometimes translated the Spirit of God, swept over the face of the waters. Okay, this is different. Remember, we need to look from the point of view of the Israelites who lived 2,000 to 3,000 years ago. Even so, these words would also be confusing to someone from another ancient Near Eastern culture back then. Let's pick someone. We'll call him Bill, the Babylonian. If Bill was reading Genesis 1, he would immediately say, "Stop. You left out the part where this God came from." That's because all ancient creation accounts of the world told you how the gods came to be created. Many gods, not just one. In Genesis, there's no story of the creation of God because God was not created. God's eternal existence is just assumed, unlike every other culture around the Jewish people. Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening and there was morning, the first day. So, how can there be light if there are no stars or sun or moon? The authors or editors of Genesis 1 don't know and don't say. We have to remember that the ancient Israelites did not think in terms of critical scientific observation or analytical experiments. Their thinking was imaginative, concrete, pictorial, emotional, and poetic. And remember, the Hebrew day begins at sunset, which is why a day is evening and morning. And we also need to know that the word that in our English Bibles that is translated as good in Hebrew is tov. The word tov does not mean merely pleasant or pleasurable, as in, wow, that pizza was good, or that was a good movie, or not even, that was a good thing to do. When God says the light was tov, the light was good, he means the light is capable of, presently engaged in the process of, and destined for completely fulfilling the divine purpose for which it was created. Sort of super good. Something that can, is now, and in the future is doing the will of God. Now, for the ancient Israelite, the creation of the world is very orderly. It follows a pattern. Each day will have God say, "Let there be X," and there will be X. and there will be an evening and a morning. This is poetry, not science. So day 1 was light. Then on day 2, God puts a dome, an expanse, a firmament above the earth, which, by the way, is exactly what Bill the Babylonian would understand the sky is, and not the way we perceive it at all. God said, "Let there be a dome in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters." So God made the dome and separated the waters that were under the dome from the waters that were above the dome. And it was so. God called the dome sky. And there was evening and there was morning the second day. Notice that God does not call the dome good. And Bible scholars have all different kinds of different ideas about why the sky is not called good in day 2. It might have something to do with the fact it's not dome yet. Who knows? On day 3, we're going to get land, seas, and plants. And God said, "Let the waters under the sky be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. God called the dry land earth, and the waters that were gathered together he called seas. And God saw that it was good. He saw it was good. Then God said, "Let the earth put forth vegetation, plants yielding seed, and fruit trees of every kind on earth that bear fruit with the seed in it." And it was so. The earth brought forth vegetation, plants yielding seed of every kind, and trees of every kind bearing fruit with the seed in it. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening and there was morning the third day. On day 4, we're going to get lights in the sky. And God said, "Let there be lights in the dome of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. And let them be lights in the dome of the sky to give light to the earth." And it was so. God made the 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night, and the stars. God set them in the dome of the sky to give light upon the earth, to rule over the day and over the night, and to separate the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. There was evening and there was morning the 4th day. And you're wondering, why didn't the author just say stars, moon, sun? Because the words for sun and moon are the same words used by surrounding peoples for the God who is the sun, the God who is the moon. And just like Bill the Babylonian, they would understand that the stars were gods, not lights. Now, next, on day 5, we're going to get living creatures in the sea and sky. And God said, "Let the waters bring forth swarms of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the dome of the sky." So God created the great sea monsters and every living creature that moves of every kind with which the waters swarm, and every winged bird of every kind. And what will God say? God saw that it was good. God blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters and the seas, and let birds multiply on the earth." And there was evening, and there was morning, the 5th day. Before we end, let's look at part of chapter 1 of the Gospel of John in the New Testament and see if that tells us something more about Genesis chapter 1. Chapter 1 of the Gospel of John says, in part, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him, and without him not one thing came into being. What has come into being in him was life. Who is being described? Yes, you're right, Jesus. And what are these verses proposing? They're saying that the Son of God was involved in creation. The Son of God, who hundreds of years after the book of Genesis was written, came to earth as a person, whom we know as Jesus, Israel's Messiah. So come back next week and let's pick up the story with day 6 of the creation story. Animal life is going to show up on earth.